Morning. It's not Freebie, aka James. It's good to see you again. It's been a while, I know. Been a lot of football happening, I know. And I can't really help it. Life gets busy around the holidays and even around my personal life and the regular old 9 to 5, as they say. But we got football news to cover, and how better we start off with what we're in the middle of bowl season. Now we all are quickly walking up on the playoffs. Like it was a showdown that we were ready to have. But, you know, we are right in the middle of my favorite part of football, bowl season. Weeks and multiple weeks upon football being played most days of the week. But this is recording on Christmas, so there's only NFL and NBA playing. Yesterday was the Hawaii Bowl, and I did not glance at the score, and I was not going to stay up on Christmas Eve to watch that, of all things. But we're going to talk about bowls and opting out. Not from a player standpoint, because obviously we know that happens more than enough. We're talking about from teams themselves. We got the holy trifecta this year. We're going to start from the middle of the ground. Kansas State and Iowa State both opted out because they didn't win enough, and they just want to get to next season and see whether they can rebound and compete for the Big 12. Those two said if we can't compete for our conference title and get into a bowl that we actually feel respected in, we'd rather not. And so they let a whole bunch of 5 and 7 teams in. Well, 2. The second one, my favorite one, Temple Owls. The most successful season they've had in probably god darn 15 years. And they ended up in a bowl, but they missed the phone call. And then missed the bowl altogether entirely. So for all the success they had, it meant nothing. Nada. Nil. And then finally, I think everybody's favorite clown show, and it continues to be this way even after this news is broke. Notre Dame getting angry because the CFB didn't take their way, didn't choose them over Miami. And to them I say, well, it's okay. As an Oklahoma fan, I could certainly say they did you dirty. They do you really dirty, because I probably would have rather faced Notre Dame. No, I wouldn't have. Let me not lie. I would have rather not seen Alabama and seen Notre Dame down at the bottom than what happened. Because at the end of the day, rematches and then not dinging people for losing, even though it's a conference final. I understand, it's a conference final. You won enough to get there, but a loss is still a fucking loss. It goes on your goddamn resume regardless. Pardon my French. Pardon using the Lord's name in vain in that regard. But at the same time, you're not going to convince me any otherwise that I'm going to feel any other kind of way. At the end of the day, you're opting out, and then you're choosing to opt out of your Notre Dame USC rivalry, bitch and moan, and have the commissioner of the Big 12 sit there and point and say, why are you acting like this when the ACC in 2020 gave you an opportunity to play inside their conference to have an ability to play during the season? Because there was no way that Notre Dame was going to play any part of a season in 2020 during the COVID year if they weren't a part of a conference. And so football-wise, and basketball, I assume, which was probably less affected, but still, they played with the ACC, and then they're coming back and talking crap about them as soon as they don't get their way. And they chose Miami, they chose yada, yada, yada. Here, you're not going to ding hard enough on the conference final. You're not going to let in somebody who has 3 losses. Fine. Bring in another G5 opponent. Bring in North Texas, even though they lost. Bring in UNLV, even though they lost. They have 10 wins. They're more qualified. Shit. I wasn't too angry about it. I just thought it was really interesting how the CFB chose Alabama losing a conference final over Notre Dame having no conference final and having the power to whine and moan about it. Okay, so we're going to move on to the professional. There really hasn't been a whole lot. I mean, Oklahoma lost against Alabama in that first round. My review of that game will simply be, man, hey, won't it be great when Oklahoma could have both a defense and an offense? A defense that will not allow 21 points, and an offense that could score more than said 21 points a game. This has been the greatest undoing of Oklahoma since we've had Brent Venables. Brent Venables has done great things. Our defense is scary. Like, I look at the defense, and I see a lot of other defenses play, and there's nothing as scary and spooky. And especially as much as I mentioned to a first-time quarterback. Even Ty Simpson in that first half, up until they started making comebacks, and that was a defensive-related comeback, he looked a bit frazzled. It looked pretty much like how the game went. Brent Venables could call a hell of a defense. All the sim blitzes and all the fake pressures and backing people off instead of bringing them. You know, there's a whole lot of things that he does that makes it difficult. It's a lot like the Brian Flores in the NFL. But then you can't score more than 24 points, and then you get capped out. You get 17 done on you, tied up at half, and then you sit there with thumbs up your ass at scoring only one touchdown when you go down by 10. And then you're down by 10 again when you lose. So what does it matter if you can't score them more than 24 points if you're just trying to stop everybody from scoring that 24 points, but you can't even do that simply. So, honestly, Oklahoma just needs to hit the portal, hit the recruiting trail hard on that offense. Go hard in the paint. You could coach out the defense. You know, there used to be saying you could coach 3 stars into 4 or 5 stars, 2 or 3 to 4 or 5. Do it again with all defensive players. You're obviously a great defensive coach, enough to get the most out of your talent. So why not just try a little bit harder to get even more out of that? All right, like I said, we're going to go to the NFL. The theme of the NFL season is chaos. 2025 is chaos. We are seeing an extreme amount of third-string quarterbacks. We saw weeks ago Patrick Mahomes go down with a blown ACL. The week after, Gardner Minshew plays a couple drives on the blown ACL. Now they're down to a third string. We're seeing third strings everywhere. And even beyond that, we're seeing a lot of very chaotic football. There's a lot of teams trying their hardest to vie for the number 1 pick. And there's plenty of teams trying to fight for that last wild card and even seeding within the playoffs. I'm just going to cover a couple big stories. Indianapolis has really cooled down. Dan Jones also blew his Achilles. It's now they're down to, I think, Phillip Rivers, who hasn't played in 5 years, got signed off of the street pretty much. And to the weirdest chagrin of the story, he was in a press conference saying that he ran his entire offensive playbook with his high school team that he's coaching before he got signed, identical to how Shane Steichen runs the offense, and would literally call him to pick his brain to figure out how to better run his offense to be more identical. He was prepared for this kind of moment. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of people and all these he set himself up for life, got that retirement, reset that. Yeah, well, I didn't think he was a Hall of Famer personally. I just thought he was a very good generational, in the generation quarterback, surrounded by the Big Bens and Drew Brees and Tom Brady's. He was caught up in that mix and was always going to be the 5th or 6th guy in that list, and put up a lot of good numbers. But I mean, honestly, I wouldn't consider him a Hall of Famer in my own personal opinion. If things would have gone a little bit differently, maybe throughout the entirety of his career, yeah. The Chargers, speaking of which, have been looking for pretty good. They're proud to wrap up. If not, they already have wrapped up the same conference that the Chiefs are in. They are taking care of business this year. Jim Harbaugh might have that 14-year show clause, but he sure as hell has a Super Bowl run ready to go. This playoff is actually AFC and NFC wise, especially AFC. There's a high chance that the only team that has been there with experience would be Buffalo. And let me assess that real quick. I'm unimpressed. And I'm a diehard Buffalo, and I'm going to sit here and not to swallow you guys got no defense. You're right. Our first half defense is mighty terrible. Our run defense, mighty terrible. But our offense, it can keep going if Josh Allen gets going. Playing second half ball, or like this week, I said it the best. I think we ended up getting in a rock fight with Cleveland. That's not the kind of thing you want to be doing. You don't want to get into a rock fight with teams that are lower than you. You don't want to get into a defensive slugfest where you just have to hold on and hope that they don't score that last one. Can't hope that you get a sack really close to the end zone on 4th down to not create a safety but create a turnover on down. Yeah. You got to hope for those lucky turnovers at the end of the game. Luckily, Buffalo's been very good about that. You can't just rely on Josh Allen to get it all done himself. Yeah, we had James Cook, and that's about it. I mean, I like Dalton Knox and Dalton Kincaid. But, I mean, outside that, there is no vertical threat. You could harp on that a million times. I love the receivers. There are some that can do it. I think re-signing Gabe Davis to pretend that he could do what he did in that one playoff run consistently is wild, because he never proved that. He probably will step it up once they hit the playoffs. I think that's what they're hoping on. And and have a really big playoffs and take advantage of the fact that there's a lot of teams that don't have the same amount of experience on the AFC side to kind of run through it. I would say that New England has slowed down, but it's only kind of, sort of. They took a loss to us, and really, they're just got to win out to cling on to the rest of the division. Cowboys keep losing. Washington keeps throwing out their injured quarterback to get injured again with the same injury or potentially similar injuries. What else? The Eagles are meh. The entire NFC South is terrible. Buccaneers didn't want that to begin with, so they're trying to give it up to the next best competitor, which just so happens to be the Kitty Cats of Carolina. What else? There hasn't been a whole lot of other news, because it's either been you've been great or you've been terrible, or you've been Pittsburgh, which just so happens to manage to get positive amounts of wins per season. But I guess for me on Christmas, I'm going to leave it short and sweet right there, just give you guys an update. There is no telling whether I'll be back for the new year, so if not, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, Merry Christmas, all the above. Thank you very much, and this next year, I put money on it, will be a lot better and a more productive year for this channel as things continue to move forward. And thank you so much.